This presentation by the Academy Sustainability Committee is going to give you a brief overview of what proper waste management and recycling is, and what it means to you. This presentation is a general introduction to recycling and waste management issues and best practices. This will be followed soon by a second presentation, which will go into more specifics about waste and recycling procedures at ANS. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty details of waste management, let's review the Academy's Sustainability Vision Statement. It is our vision that the Academy will become a regional leader and go-to resource for sustainability using our scientific expertise, and thereby set the standard for museum sustainability in the 21st century. We're aiming high, and we want you to help us get there. So let's jump right into this major sustainability issue: our waste stream. Even though Americans make up only around 5% of the global population, we generate almost a third of the world's trash, or 250 million tons of garbage. Of all this waste we create, only 35% is recycled. Because of the large amount of trash we generate, we require numerous landfills to hold it all. However, these landfills are not evenly distributed geographically. In 2008, there were 134 landfill facilities here in the Northeast, whereas Alaska had 300 and the South had over 700. Landfills have various negative impacts on ecosystems. The barriers of all landfills eventually break down, allowing polluting gases and chemicals to leach into the ground and surface water, disrupting ecosystems. Compounding the landfill issues, poor waste management in general can cause major pollution of land and water supplies. Garbage disposals and toilets are large waste contributors to our local water systems, and contamination in our water can have adverse impacts on wildlife and their natural habitats. But these are very broad facts. How is the Academy specifically impacting the environment? A qualitative waste audit was conducted at the Academy by the Sustainability Committee and Drexel this past November. This audit revealed that around 40% of our waste destined for the landfill was recyclable material. Additionally, based on visual audits of waste and recycling receptacles around the Academy, confusion exists about the waste stream in many places, leading to less than optimal results. This presentation is a first step of many that the Sustainability Committee has planned to drive improvements in reducing our waste and improving our recycling rate. So what can you do? How can you improve? Most of us have heard the slogan, reduce, reuse, recycle, but you might not think carefully about what it is really telling us. Many do not realize that these 3 R's are a hierarchy. To minimize your negative impacts on the environment and your carbon footprint, the hierarchy is important to keep in mind, so let's go through it in a bit more detail. The first R in the hierarchy is reduce. This concept may seem simple, but it's a step that actually involves changing the way you think. For instance, when buying a new item for your house, you may currently think to yourself, is this the most environmentally friendly product? That's certainly a good start, but instead try and train yourself to ask, do I really need to buy this at all? Can I get something used instead? Reducing isn't just about whether to buy something or not. It can be about choosing to buy a product with less packaging, or choosing to buy single-ply toilet paper instead of double-ply. Once you start questioning whether something or some component is really necessary in your life, reducing starts to come naturally. Do you need to turn your light on before the sun is set? Do you have to shower for a full 10 minutes? And the added bonus is that, by reducing, you will end up with more money in your pocket. Now that we're thinking more deeply about the idea of reducing, it's time to move down the hierarchy to the next step: reuse. Many of us practice this idea with reusable coffee cups or water bottles. That's a fantastic start. Try to also reuse other items you might not think to. For example, package your snacks in Tupperware instead of plastic baggies, use sponges instead of paper towels, or rinse out a plastic cup and reuse it a few times before throwing it out. When you start to think about this critically, you'll find that many of the items that you once thought of as single-use can really go quite far. Of course, there will certainly be items that are no longer useful to you that you want to get rid of. But if they're in good condition, they're not necessarily useless for everyone else. For instance, old bedding is always in demand at local animal shelters. Clothing, furniture, and household items can be donated to Purple Heart and Goodwill. If someone else can get a use out of something you own, that item is diverted from our waste stream and keeps a new item from being produced. So that brings us to the last R of the hierarchy, and the focus of our presentation: recycling. Now, just because it's at the bottom of the hierarchy does not mean it's unimportant. Creating closed-loop systems through processes like proper disposal of our recyclables is paramount to a sustainable future. So where to begin? The first step is knowing what can be recycled. This might seem rudimentary, but it can be a bit complicated. We know the basic categories: glass, paper, which includes office paper, cardboard, and newspaper, metals, plastic, and so on. Here at the Academy, all plastics numbers 1 through 7 can be recycled. To find the tare number of a plastic, look for the recycling symbol on the bottle or container. Within that recycling symbol, a small number should be visible. But hang on, it's not that easy. You may be able to recycle glass, but not broken pieces. And paper is a great recyclable, but wet paper, tissues, napkins, or paper towels are considered contamination to the recycling stream. Pots and pans are not suitable metals for the recycling stream, and plastic cutlery or straws cannot be recycled either. Styrofoam can't be recycled, nor can any container that has significant food contamination. This next statement might seem counterintuitive, but if you're unsure whether you can recycle something, it's best to throw it out. Yes, recycling what can be recycled is an important step, but the recycling process itself is delicate and can't have too much contamination. There are also items known as super recyclables, that is, items that do not fall within normal recycling categories, but still should not be disposed of in the landfill stream. These include things like ink cartridges, batteries, cell phones, plastic grocery bags, and light bulbs. Luckily, your ink cartridges, batteries, computers, and cell phones can all be collected here at ANS. Plastic bags are great items to try and reuse, but if you can't, most supermarkets collect them. That's a lot of information you just got, but recycling doesn't have to be overly complicated. Simply check if an item is recyclable. If so, rinse it out if there's contamination, and then throw it into the appropriate bin. There's a lot of terminology tossed around about recycling, so let's just take a minute to briefly review it. You may have heard the term single-stream recycling before. This means that all of your recyclable material, that your paper, cans, bottles, and so on, get thrown into the same bin. You cannot mix trash and recycling in single-stream systems, but you don't have to worry about separating out the different recyclables. That's what multi-stream recycling is. In a typical multi-stream recycling program, your paper products will go into one bin, and your glass, cans, and plastic will all go into another. The bin containing the mixed recyclables is referred to as a commingled container. That's usually the recycling bin you put out at your curbside. Other terms that might be confusing are biodegradable and compostable. If something says it's biodegradable, this means it can break down or decompose under natural conditions. However, be aware, biodegradable materials rarely decompose in a landfill. This is because landfills are so full that your material rarely touches the ground. This is why it's better to select products that are recyclable rather than biodegradable. Compostable is another label. This is when an item is comprised of organic materials and can be turned into compost, or a rich soil that can be reused for gardening. Some of you may compost at home, which is fantastic. For those who don't, check your county's website to see if they have a composting program. And how about this word sustainability we've all been talking about? Sustainability literally means finding a way of life that will be able to continue and thrive in the future. This requires balancing people, planet, and profit. This concept of sustainability applies both to the Academy as well as your life individually, which is why taking these issues seriously is so important. If you still have some questions, you're not alone. Let's go over some of the most frequently asked questions with regards to recycling. Many wonder how clean a recycled material must be in order to be allowed into the recycling stream. A recycling bin cannot contain over 5% contamination. If you have a soda bottle, for instance, it's recommended that you rinse out that last bit of soda in the bottom before throwing it into the bin. And speaking of soda bottles, what do you do with the cap? Most caps on plastic bottles are recyclable, as are lids on cans and jars. However, they must be removed from the bottles before both components go into the recycling bin. This allows the bottles to be properly processed at the recycling plant. Oftentimes a product, such as a can of Trader Joe's coffee, will have mixed recycling components in it. The coffee can has a metal rim and a cardboard exterior. To recycle products like this, try and separate the item into individual recyclable components. For instance, with a coffee can, you'd want to peel the metal rim away from the rest of the cardboard and place the materials into their appropriate containers. While we're thinking about coffee, one of the most common questions is whether a disposable coffee cup can be recycled. There's really no easy answer. For ANS, the coffee cups from the cafe are recyclable. However, if a cup is wax-lined, then generally not. Just be sure to separate the lid from the cup before recycling. So why is this important again? Why commit all this information to memory? Because recycling makes a huge impact. Proper waste management reduces the waste going to our landfills, especially if you prioritize reduce, then reuse, then recycle. This also cuts down on our demand for natural resources. A product takes both energy and material to produce. By reducing, reusing, and recycling, both are saved. It protects our water and air from contamination, which is critical to the future health of people and of wildlife. And finally, there's the economic argument. Reducing, reusing, and recycling all save money. At the Academy, we spend 4 times more to haul our trash than our recycling. So that concludes our overview of waste management and recycling. There are many resources you can go to for more information, and you'll find the links on our recycling intranet page in the sustainability section. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Please click the link below this video to fill out a brief survey and be entered into a drawing to win some sustainable prizes.